Welcome to Transcendent. I'm Joe and I'm the dad.
And I'm Raya, and I'm the daughter. I made some synonym bread.
No, I think you mean cinnamon.
No. Synonym. Words that mean the same thing. Equivalents, alternatives, substitutes, matches, parallels. It gave me the sorest throat I've ever had. We get questions from people all the time, specifically people in the LGBTQ plus community saying, is it normal for me to feel this different? And variations on that. So we come back to this topic an awful lot. We actually just addressed this a few weeks ago with our podcast. Being different doesn't mean being wrong, but yet it comes up so frequently and people are asking so much, am I really normal? Why do I feel so different?
They present those questions to us in different ways, but it all comes down to the same thing. Is this normal? Am I normal or am I abnormal? What's the deal here?
There's a lot of versions of normal, of course.
We are just finishing this big holiday season, and we see holidays after holidays after holidays. To me, it kind of starts with Halloween. Trick-or-treating. And then, of course, there's Thanksgiving. There's Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, Christmas, other things with Christmas that go with it, the 12 days of Christmas. Then we get to, yet we're not done. Oh, it's New Year's Day. Each one of those things has a tradition of some type. Now, even though they have a tradition, if you don't participate in that tradition, are you not normal? Of course not.
Right.
When you're normal, it means I do something with that particular holiday. It's Halloween. Maybe I dress up in a costume. Okay, I don't dress up in a costume, but maybe I could. But I do stand by the door with a bag of candy and look forward to seeing the little kids come and trick or treat with a big smile on their face. And it's fun.
Yep.
That's how I participate.
I did this year. We had some of the kids over and we all dressed up.
Yeah.
And Megan and I both had pirate costumes and the other kids had other costumes on. And it was fun. It was a good time. And every year, the way that we celebrate is going to change up even a little bit, so the way that we celebrate all of these holidays is different from how it was when I was a kid, of course, and things change over time. But the thing about the holidays that you notice is we like to come back to this thing that is tradition. It's what we remember, and it gives us that place of stability. And I think that this question for some people is coming from that place of, I feel unstable. I feel like I'm not like everybody else.
Yes.
I don't match. A lesbian woman was in the closet for many years, and her best friend was always talking about her boyfriend and whoever she was into. This woman herself finally came out, and her friend was all supportive. But then, as she got more and more embracing her identity, she began to do some of the same things that her straight friend had done. Tell stories about gay relationships and be really into queer media and be really into, her whole life started to revolve around it in the same way that her friend's straight life had been, it had really kind of set her life. And her straight friend said, it's no fun to be around you anymore. You're so queer. You're everything is always gay, this, gay, that. And she said to herself, thinking about it, she said, I feel like I put up with my friends' straight stories all the time. It was always boyfriends and always this and always what guy she was into. And every movie that we see would be straight people in their heterosexual romances. And I just felt like I had to live feeling not normal all that time. And now I have finally a chance where I get to feel normal. And my friend says, I don't really like this anymore. I think that can be how we feel, that we feel othered. We do feel different. We feel like when we're among quote unquote normal people, something feels off. That doesn't mean that we don't belong.
Well, that's true. And when you look at situations like that, you look at other holidays. Some people celebrate Christmas in a different way than we do. Some people don't celebrate Christmas at all, but they celebrate Hanukkah. Some kids are waiting for the Hanukkah fairy. There's a variety of things like that. We get to New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, and there are traditions. And if you have a tradition for New Year's Eve, it could be you're going to go out and party with the crowd. Maybe your tradition is that you're going to have a New Year's resolution. Most common one is I'm going to lose weight.
Sure.
But it isn't necessarily everyone. And everyone doesn't participate in those. I know there is a tradition in the South where they'll say, what's New Year's without hog jowls and black-eyed peas? And that's true. And for them, that is the tradition. For us, it's a little different. We do have a special meal for it ourselves. And everybody does it a little differently. Does that mean that if they're not doing it my way, they're not normal? It could mean that they look at me and think I'm not normal. But the good news is we're all normal.
Right.
We really, truly are. And that makes a big difference when you're looking at, is this normal or is that normal? Of course it is. There's so many things we can take a look at and think to ourselves, well, that doesn't seem normal. Hey, everyone in some way or other is normal, and everyone in some way or other is not normal. People think I'm not normal because I'm left-handed. I think it is really cool being left-handed.
Dad, I have to tell you, I think people think that you are not normal for a whole lot of reasons.
What people do when they ask, is this normal? Am I normal? They may ask that question, but what really they're asking is one of these types of things. They might be saying, am I okay? Do I belong? Is there something wrong with me? Just tell me and let me know. How do I fit here? And they will say things like, you are okay. You do belong. And nothing is wrong with you. I would certainly say it to those people who are eating hog jowls and black-eyed peas. I'm going to confess right here, I've never had hog jowls.
And I think the black-eyed peas are asking this whole time, where is the love?
But see, that question doesn't come out of nowhere. A lot of us grew up in an environment where normal was defined for us. And it wasn't a very flexible definition. It usually meant something like straight or gender confirming or Christian.
I think you mean gender conforming.
Oh, yes. I actually meant cinnamon. But you're Christian or you get married at a certain age and you never cause too much trouble at Thanksgiving or Christmas. That's what they think normal is.
You know, I think through in this holiday season, how many people, this is not an easy time for them because of all of the things.
Yeah.
Now, that could be that you're feeling like, I don't feel normal because of my LGBTQ plus identity, that I'm there and maybe my family has rejected me. But it could just be something as simple as a loved one that made the holiday so special is no longer with us. And all of those things remind us of the normal that we longed for and we're looking for, and we don't really have it like we want. And I think what we're wanting to say here is that everybody is normal and everybody is abnormal, but there's a spectrum where you can feel like I fit in and I don't fit in. And it's okay when you feel like I wish I fit in better. That's okay. But we don't want to contribute to feeling like you have to be a certain way. The whole point is you don't have to be a certain way.
Right.
As long as you are treating other people with love and dignity, and you are not dehumanizing other people, you are exactly who you need to be.
You, as a former pastor, have encountered people with ideas and concerns. And tell me a little bit about that.
Well, right. I remember sitting with people who were just terrified. They not even LGBTQ, but they just felt like their secret thoughts, their things that nobody else had ever known about them, but they could tell me because I was their pastor. And they felt like, does this make me broken? Does this make me not okay? And I had to tell them that every one of us feels this way. Every one of us has this. You're not broken. The only broken thing was a system that taught them to fear their own hearts.
There's so many things that are statistically uncommon, but completely normal. The one, of course, I love is being left-handed. I'm so proud of that. Having green eyes is not statistically common. It's uncommon.
I heard recently that having green eyes is a mutation that happened in the human race. I forget how long ago, but it's a mutation that happened and then proliferated throughout. So it's an uncommon variety, but because it exists, it has continued to pass on now.
That's interesting. And as far as I'm concerned, you put that to a vote, the ayes have it.
I guess so.
But you can become a musical prodigy and have this talent that is kind of given to you. That doesn't make you abnormal. You're still normal, but you are in the minority. And that's okay. And, nobody pulls a kid aside and says, look, you need to fix that problem about being able to play all that music without any training. There's something wrong there. Nobody would do that. I'd like to say, nobody pulled me aside and said, look, that left-handedness has got to go. But the truth is, when I was in Japan, they did do that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
In fact, they would, because I wasn't one of them, it was okay. And they would never comment on it except comment with, oh, isn't that cute?
When I was growing up, I used to play Dungeons and Dragons where you would have 6 different statistics for who you were, and you would roll 3 dice, 3 6-sided dice, and add up the totals. And so what that meant is there were 360, right? No, how many is it? So it's 36 times 6 options, whatever that works out to, of numbers of different rolls that you can have. That means that one of those rolls would come in at an 18, which was the best that you could want. Very rare to get that. 3 of those rolls would come in at a 17, because that would mean that you had rolled 2 6s and 1 5. But on the other hand, one of those would come in as a 3, so you'd only have a 3. So you'd have this range between 3 and 18, with most people coming in at an average of between 11 or 12. Well, so what I learned from playing that game is you might think that, okay, well, most of us have this range of, between 10 and 13 maybe is kind of the normal range. But it was not that strange, and you wanted to have the big numbers. Of course, you didn't want to have the small numbers. But it was that distribution curve. Well, we do that now where we think there are certain things that are really desirable. And so those are the small number of things at the high end of the curve, of a bell curve. And then there's undesirable things at the low end of a bell curve. But you go to a different society and you discover that those are flip-flopped around.
Yes, that's true.
And, like for many people, being a tall woman is considered very desirable. But for me as a transgender woman, I sure wish I was not as tall as I am. And I'm not even that tall. I'm 5'7", which puts me slightly above average.
Yeah.
But I sure wish I was 5'3" or 5'4", so that I was more quote unquote normal.
Maybe we could do a short program about that.
That's a tall order.
Well, the point is, we are not designed to be carbon copies of one another. That's the whole deal. There are no two people anywhere in the world that are alike. We are all snowflakes. Am I right?
Yes, we
They
are.
say there are no two snowflakes exactly alike. And I don't know how they know that, because I tried to figure that out once, but it just melted on my hand before I was able to compare them.
So what happens when somebody grows up hearing that message over and over again that they're not normal? We're going to talk about that right after this.
I am Mark Ziemer, a listener and supporter of Transcendent. I've been a Lutheran pastor for 45 years, and oh, what a journey that was for me to understand the LGBTQIA community and what that meant. I was so not understanding and hurtful. So this podcast is incredibly important to really educate and understand and to hold relationships together. So I urge you to consider listening, of course, but also supporting. You can go to transcendent.com and click on the heart with a support button. You can give as little as $3 a month, and you can cancel at any time. Important for all of us on this journey of understanding, keeping relationships together, truly being people of love.
So when people hear throughout their life, when they're very young and just questioning, and they're hearing all the time that things are not normal, there's a lot of damage there, a lot of damage, and it's really not necessary. One of the first things that happens when you're young and you hear people talking like that and saying this is not normal, it creates a lot of shame because you're not like that. Oh, I'm left-handed. I don't know. I thought it was okay. I've been trying to eat with my right hand, but it just isn't really comfortable for me.
And I think that's really the beauty of that analogy is we all understand trying to do something with your offhand, and it just does not work.
No, it doesn't.
And you take people in the LGBTQ plus community, and we are shoved into a system that feels all the time like we're trying to do things with our offhand. And our mirroring neurons in our brain always say, look at how others are doing it. I should be like that. And
Yeah.
maybe nobody's even telling you that. You know, you never grew up telling me transgender people are terrible.
No,
But I saw messaging everywhere.
of course.
I saw movies that said trans people are weird.
Yep.
I saw TV shows that made fun of transgender people. You remember on Friends, Chandler's dad was a transgender woman. So even they called her his dad. So they were very hurtful towards his parent, even in the show itself. That was the milieu of the culture at the time. I internalized those messages.
Of course. And it not only creates shame, but it also creates secrecy. So, well, you can't tell anybody about that. And then there's the self-doubt. The self-doubt is another very difficult thing. You're basically fighting against yourself. And it's just devastating. And there is no reason for it. Not any reason at all. There's also fear. And fear is fear of coming out, fear of losing your friends, fear of losing your parents, those types of things. And you don't know until you know. That's another problem. I don't want to come out because I don't know what my dad's going to think. I don't know what my grandpa's going to think. I don't know what the neighbors are going to think. And, well, the only way I can find out is to come out. And I know what my dad has said. I know what my mom has said. And I can't do that. Well, let me tell you something that shocked Raya and shocked a lot of people, including me. When Raya told me I had no idea. I was completely surprised. But the first thing I thought was either I accept it or I lose her. There's nothing in between. What surprised her was my acceptance, my immediate acceptance. Would I say that I was affirming? No. I needed to educate myself a lot more about that. And this podcast has helped me more than anything else and continues to teach me new things.
But really, so did I. I needed to learn. I remember when I was first wrestling with this, and some friends asked me, well, do you think that maybe you're transgender? And I said, no, definitely not. I am definitely not transgender because those people are weird. And I'm not weird.
Well,
I'm not weird in that way. And that is how I felt. I felt like if I do that, it's going to put me out. And not like it would be wrong. At that point, I was at the point where I said, okay, for people that are legitimately transgender, that's fine. You go ahead and you do you. But boy, that's weird. And that's certainly not my experience.
you know, that's true. Many people internalize those lies long before they even understand who they are, which is what you're saying.
Yeah. I think I felt like in order to be legitimately transgender, I had to have a certain kind of experience. And I remember a time with my therapist where she said to me, Raya, and because I had just chosen my name, but I hadn't, I was not ready yet, but it was just in the office that I was just playing around with it. And she said, Raya, cisgender men do not come into my office and say, I wish that I could be a woman. Yeah. You are transgender enough. And oh, wow. So I felt like even there that I did not have the normal experience of what it meant to be transgender. I felt like I had to know that I was a woman born in a man's body or a girl born in a boy's body. But I never felt that way. I always felt like if you gave me a button that I could press and I could live this life, I would have done it in a heartbeat.
Of course.
But because there was no button like that, that was just fantasy. That was just some wishful thinking. I just had to live my stupid life as a boy, and I was just stuck that way. All of that messaging of being abnormal sat with me for all that time. And what I needed to do, I wish that we could go back and talk to ourselves in the 80s and the 90s and say, look, just be okay with it. Be yourself. You don't have to hide who you are because you think that there's a standard that you have to live up to.
Since doing this podcast, you know what I've learned? I have learned that shame is a learned feeling. It's not something you're born with. It's something that you have been indoctrinated to. And suddenly you have that shame that really was not something you were born with. Shame is learned, but identity is not.
Right.
And that's the big difference.
And there are, of course, some things that we want to still have shame for. For instance, if you are a jerk to people all the time, you should feel ashamed about that. We want you to feel like, don't treat people badly, right? Don't go around and spit on your neighbor's dog or whatever. I mean, don't do things to people that are disrespectful and that are wrong. You should feel ashamed for those things.
I know a lot of people like that. And I think they're all in Washington, D.C.
I think especially right now, they sure are. But we don't want to pile up unnecessary shame. And this is really the distinction that we're having. It's okay to feel like I'm not like everybody else around me. That's fine. We all are not like everybody else around us in some way.
That's true.
But what we don't want is then to send ourselves the message of, I am therefore a bad person, or I'm wrong, or I should be fearful, I should hide this. No, as long as you are not hurting somebody else, as long as you are not bringing evil into the world, be who you are.
if you are asking, is it normal to be this way? Maybe instead you should be asking, is it true to be this way? Or is it healthy to be myself? Or is it right to honor what I feel? And I think you'll come up with the answer that's correct. Because every time someone steps into the fullness of who they are, every time you see life and joy and clarity and peace, you just are your authentic self. And that is wonderful. We all want to be our authentic self. And when you are, suddenly the sun comes out.
And the science backs this up, of course. The studies show over and over again that orientation and gender identity involve complex interactions of biology and genetics, prenatal hormones, environment. There is no credible scientific or medical organization that views LGBTQ plus identities as a disorder any longer.
Right. It's just individual people who think that, not organizations. One thing that really has been separating so many of the LGBTQ plus community from everyone else has been religion. God does not reject you. God does not despise who you are. God is not waiting to fix your identity. The God I know is far more concerned with how we love, how we care for the people who need that care. How do we treat our neighbors? Much more than how do we label our attractions or express our gender.
We used to say in church, and you may have believed this lie as well, that the statement itself is true, that you come in to a church community as you are, you be yourself, but then you don't stay that way. You continue to grow.
Yeah.
The problem comes when people say, oh, well, part of your growth is to reject your identity, to stop being who you are. So you do want to grow in ways that make you more loving, more kind, more patient, more gentle, more self-controlled, the fruits of the Spirit, as it talks about in the book of Galatians. But we don't grow in ways that make us less authentic to ourselves. You don't tone down who you are. In other words, if you went to a church community where they said, you know, you really need to be telling less bad jokes if you're going to really be loved by God, that would be terrible.
It would be.
Because that would make you not who you are.
Yeah.
Not your nature at all. You need to be telling stupid jokes.
I do. And proud of it.
You are proud of it. And that's how we all are, is that be yourself, be your most authentic self, and don't think that just because one area involves sexuality, because sexuality can feel like, well, we're supposed to keep that secret. And of course, that's why sexuality is private. Couples are behind closed doors and you're not out in the open. But that doesn't mean that you have to hide who you are.
I just returned from a trip to Africa. While I was there, I learned a lot from our guide about a variety of things. And humanity has a long history of people who lived boldly and loved deeply and existed authentically because they were living their true self life. Their identity was normal, whatever it was. And there were a lot of surprises in their long history. Some of this history went back more than 10,000 years. For us to look at belonging as part of that long history is wonderful. Normal is not about being common. It's about being truthful. You are allowed to take up space exactly where you are, and that is just fine.
But one thing that will never take up space is this podcast, because we are digital. I don't know. That's a little bit weak, but we're going to go with it. Anyway, we're grateful to have you coming back here week after week as we bring a message of positivity to you. And I hope that you feel empowered to be yourself and now to go empower others to be themselves as well.
If you have some questions that we haven't answered, email us at transcended@gmail.com. Have you got a thought? Please share it with us. We will address it on this podcast if it's appropriate.
And with that,
We'll see you Monday.
I made some I can't even do it right.